You know, when we think about trust breaking, we almost always picture something explosive,
Oh,
like a
absolutely.
massive betrayal or, I don't know, a sudden scandal, like a literal shouting match in the middle of a crowded room. We expect a loud crash, right? Something completely
Well,
unmistakable.
the movie moment.
Exactly. But what if the most damaging kind of broken trust doesn't make a sound at all?
Yeah, it's the erosion we just don't notice until we're already falling.
Which perfectly brings us to the mission of our deep dive today. We are exploring this profoundly relatable, like almost universal human experience. What actually happens when our trust is quietly, painfully broken? And more importantly, how we can move from that place of betrayal to a place of, well, genuine spiritual discernment.
It's such an important
It
journey.
really is. So we're drawing from this incredible source document today called Christ and Discernment.
Yeah.
And we'll be specifically looking at this strategy called being anchored first and a framework known as the Belinza Core. So, okay, let's unpack this.
I love that we're doing this because, we're dealing with ancient wisdom here, but the application is just incredibly modern
Oh, for sure.
because you, the listener, are currently navigating a world that is just overflowing with deeply convincing information. I mean, you are bombarded every day with compelling opportunities and these very assured people who sound absolutely certain.
Oh my gosh, yes. Everyone sounds so certain.
Right. But they are not necessarily trustworthy. So the question becomes, how do you operate in that environment without losing your mind, your grounding, or frankly, your capacity to ever trust again?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And to figure out how to rebuild trust, I think we have to look really closely at how it actually breaks in the first place.
Mm.
There's this specific idea in our research that just, I mean, it stopped me in my tracks. It's this realization that trust doesn't always break loudly. Sometimes it breaks in total silence.
It's a terrifying thought, honestly.
It really is.
It shifts our entire focus away from those dramatic betrayals to the slow, quiet erosions of everyday life. Yeah.
Right. Think about what this looks like for a second. You trust people who sound completely sure of themselves. You lean on financial or like organizational systems that look rock solid.
Yeah.
You step into a career opportunity that just feels right, and you follow advice from a mentor that seems incredibly wise. I picture it like this. Imagine you're walking down the street, you're a bit tired, and you lean your full weight against what you assume is a solid brick wall.
You don't even analyze it.
Exactly, you just lean. And then, terrifyingly, without a single creak or crack, the wall slowly gives way.
You fall. And not because someone maliciously pushed you, but simply because what you believed to be solid just wasn't.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating here from the text is the distinction between that initial event of falling and the psychological aftermath that follows.
Oh, the aftermath is almost worse.
Yeah, it is.
Because the immediate disappointment of a failure, like the company went under, the mentor gave terrible advice, the relationship fizzled, that's painful. But then comes this deeper, lingering self-doubt. It leaves you with this central question that the text points out.
Which is?
Was I wrong to trust, or did I trust the wrong things?
And that self-doubt is insidious because of one crucial detail. For a while, those things actually worked.
That's the catch. It wasn't some obvious scam from day one.
Exactly. The person was sure of themselves and things were going well, the system was stable, and you were actually benefiting from it. Until suddenly, you weren't.
Right.
When something works for a while and then collapses silently, it makes you question your own internal radar. You start wondering if your compass is fundamentally broken. Like, if I couldn't see this coming, what else am I completely blind to? It's a crisis of internal confidence.
It's a total crisis of confidence. And I think it's really easy to feel like this is a uniquely modern problem.
Absolutely.
We blame social media, we blame, modern corporate structures or the 24-hour news cycle. But as I was digging into the scriptural foundations in our research, it brought up Psalm 12.
Hmm.
And the world David describes in that ancient text, it sounds uncomfortably identical to the one we live in right now.
Human nature really hasn't evolved past the vulnerabilities of trust. The scenery changes, but the core issue stays exactly the same.
So in Psalm 12, David is surrounded by these flattering but entirely unstable words. Truth feels heavily diluted. There are all these massive promises being spoken, but they aren't backed by an ounce of integrity.
Wow.
Yeah, everything around him sounds totally convincing, but none of it is trustworthy. Now, playing devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
If you were living in a world exactly like David's, or exactly like ours, where truth is diluted and people lack integrity, isn't the most logical, rational reaction just to become highly suspicious and cautious of absolutely everyone? I mean, if the brick wall collapsed, shouldn't my takeaway be to never lean on a wall again?
Well, from a purely self-preservation standpoint, building a massive wall of suspicion seems logical.
Right.
It feels safe. But if we look at the paradigm presented in that text, David does something completely counterintuitive.
Yeah.
He doesn't just become cautious or cynical, he becomes anchored.
Anchored.
He recognizes a fundamental truth. Human words can and will eventually fail. Systems will fracture. But God's word is pure, flawless, and unshaken.
Mm-hmm.
This introduces a massive shift for how we process our reality. True discernment does not begin with doubting people. It begins with trusting God.
That feels like the exact opposite of what our survival instincts tell us to do when we're hurt.
Totally.
Because my instinct is to interrogate everyone around me to make sure they aren't going to hurt me.
But interrogation is exhausting. And it rarely yields the security you're actually looking for. Cynicism is just another form of blindness, you know? You just assume everything is dark.
Oh, that's a great point.
But the text outlines a clear pattern across Scripture that backs up this idea of anchoring. Like, Proverbs tells us that trust in the Lord brings actual direction. Jeremiah describes those who trust in God as having steady, deep roots. And in Matthew, Jesus calls for a very specific, challenging combination.
What's that?
Wisdom combined with innocence.
Wisdom with innocence. Not wisdom with cynicism. That's a huge distinction.
It changes the entire goal. Discernment is not suspicion. It is alignment. It's aligning yourself with what God has already proven to be true, rather than frantically searching for the lie in every single person you meet.
Okay, so true discernment is alignment. I understand that intellectually, but let's be honest about human nature here.
Let's do it.
We usually fail miserably at this when our trust is broken. When that silent wall collapses, we don't immediately think, let me align myself with eternal truth.
No, we usually panic.
We panic, and our research outlines what it calls a maturity gap. It highlights two very common, incredibly human, but ultimately immature reactions we have when trust breaks. Reaction number one, we trust too quickly again, trying to recover what was lost. Reaction number two, we stop trusting completely, trying to protect ourselves. Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Think about these two reactions visually.
Okay, paint the picture.
Shutting down your trust completely is like building a medieval fortress. You pull up the drawbridge, you dig a deep moat, you put archers on the tower, and absolutely no one gets in. You're completely safe from another wall collapsing.
But you're also entirely isolated.
Exactly.
You survive, but you cease to live.
Right. And on the flip side, rushing to trust again too quickly. Let's say you jump right into a new business partnership or a new relationship weeks after a brutal betrayal. That's like falling off a boat in the middle of the ocean and grabbing onto a leaky life raft just to stay afloat.
Oh, wow.
You are so desperate for that feeling of stability, for something solid to hold on to, that you'll cling to something that is actively sinking.
If we connect this to the bigger picture in the source, the psychology is just so revealing. Like, shutting down your trust isn't actual discernment. It's simply defense. You know, you aren't seeing clearly, you're just hiding.
Yeah.
And rushing your trust isn't wisdom either. It's just pressure. You feel this agonizing pressure to fill the void that the broken trust left behind.
A defense versus pressure.
Exactly. Neither of these represents maturity. Why? Because in both scenarios, the fortress and the leaky life raft, your actions are being entirely dictated by the pain of your past failure. The trauma is in the driver's seat. You are either reacting against the pain by hiding from the world, or reacting against it by desperately seeking a cheap replacement. True discernment requires a stable foundation, not a reactive one.
That is a brilliant moment for you, listening right now, to just evaluate your own default setting. When you get disappointed at work or in your family or in your community, do you build the fortress or do you grab the life raft?
Yeah, are you playing defense or are you operating under pressure?
Exactly. Identifying your default is the first step out of the trap.
So how do we actually get out of the trap? How do we stop building moats and grabbing leaky rafts?
Well, our research introduces a really practical framework here, and it calls it the Balinza Core. Now, Balinza, in the context of this material, is essentially a strategy for seeing clearly through the fog of a confusing world.
Right.
It's about finding that core clarity when everything else is murky.
Yeah.
And it breaks the strategy down into 3 steps: one feeling, one truth, one phrase.
It's a progression from the internal wound to the external application. I love this part.
Let's walk through it. The feeling is exactly what we started with today. I trusted the wrong things. It's just acknowledging that quiet realization, no shame, just the fact.
Hmm.
The truth is the remedy to that feeling. When I trust God first, I see everything else clearly. And finally, the phrase, the ultimate takeaway to carry in your pocket is simply anchored first.
Anchored first. It's a beautifully concise way to summarize a profound theological and psychological shift.
I want to make this highly practical, though. I'm thinking about tomorrow morning. If I wake up and someone pitches me a new idea or asks for a major commitment, my instinct, having been burned before, is to just cross-examine them, to be super suspicious.
Sure, naturally.
But if I am truly anchored first, how does that fundamentally change my approach?
It changes the primary question you're asking yourself in that moment. Think about it. When you lack a secure foundation, you approach every new pitch, every new relationship with a sense of underlying desperation.
Right.
You are either desperate to believe them so you can feel secure again, or you are paralyzed by the fear that they are deceiving you. You are constantly asking this frantic, ultimately unanswerable question.
Which is,
Can I trust this person?
and the scary reality is, you can never know with absolute 100% certainty if a human system or person won't fail you eventually.
You can't. Which is why asking, can I trust this, leaves you spinning your wheels. But when you are anchored first, when your ultimate trust is already placed in something pure and unshaken, the desperation evaporates.
Oh, that makes sense.
You aren't controlled by their presentation or your own emotional fluctuations. You stop searching out in the wild for something to hold your weight. Instead, you start asking a much more grounded question. Does this opportunity align with what I already trust in God?
So you evaluate the opportunity from a pre-existing place of stability rather than looking to the opportunity to provide the stability.
That is the absolute essence of clarity.
To help with that clarity, our source provides a diagnostic checklist. 3 specific questions you can ask yourself tomorrow before you give your trust away. And I really want us to dig into these because they expose so much about how we are easily fooled.
Let's hear them.
Question 1. Does this align with truth, or does it just sound convincing?
This is the difference between substance and packaging.
Yeah.
We live in an era where presentation is literally an art form. A lot of things, whether it's a charismatic leader, a slick marketing campaign, or a new wellness trend, are engineered specifically to bypass your logic and just sound convincing.
Definitely. They use the right vocabulary. They strike the perfect empathetic tone. They have great lighting.
Exactly. They sound like David's flattering lips from Psalm 20.
Oh, wow. Yes.
They're optimized to persuade. But alignment with truth requires looking beneath the packaging. It requires asking, strip away the charisma, strip away the branding. What is the actual core of this message? Does it align with enduring scriptural truth, or is it just a masterful performance?
That is so relevant. I've definitely bought into the masterful performance before. Okay, question 2 on the checklist. Is this consistent, or is it just impressive?
This one is incredibly difficult in a culture that rewards the spectacular. Impressiveness is often a flash in the pan. It's a massive grand gesture, a viral moment, a brilliantly executed quarter in business. It is designed to win your approval quickly.
And we want to trust the impressive person because they seem like a winner.
We do, but impressiveness requires very little character. Consistency, on the other hand, is usually quiet, it's boring, it's showing up every single day with the same integrity year after year. Consistency asks, does this hold up over the long haul? When you are deciding whether to trust someone, don't look at their most impressive moment. Look at their baseline behavior on an average Tuesday.
Wow. Look at their baseline behavior on an average Tuesday. I'm writing that down seriously. All right, the final question on the checklist. Is this rooted, or is it just appealing?
Well, appealing speaks directly to our desires. It's what we want to be true. It's the promise of a shortcut, the investment that guarantees impossible returns, the relationship that demands zero compromise from us. It appeals to our hunger for an easy life.
It's the life raft that looks incredibly comfortable when you're drowning.
Yes, but rooted speaks to depth. It speaks to a connection to a source of life. A tree might not look as dazzling as a neon sign, but a tree has a root system that allows it to weather a hurricane.
Right.
Something can be highly appealing but have absolutely no root system, meaning the moment the cultural winds shift or the money dries up, it will wither and vanish.
Truth versus convincing. Consistent versus impressive. Rooted versus appealing. Those are incredible filters. But beyond those three, there is a foundational prerequisite. You have to ask yourself, have I anchored myself in what God has already said? Because if you try to use this checklist without being anchored first, you're still just relying on your own broken radar.
Exactly.
When your trust starts with God, the fog lifts. The decisions become clear because you are measuring everything against a stable yardstick.
It's the only real mechanism for true discernment that doesn't rely on suspicion.
As we wrap up our time together, the material we're studying includes what it calls an optional, gentle Balinza moment. It's this reminder that the ultimate goal of all this isn't isolation. The quote is, discernment isn't about becoming distant, it's about becoming grounded.
I love that.
It's not about pulling away from the world and locking yourself in that fortress. It's about standing firm in the middle of the world without being tossed around by it.
Mhm.
And it leaves us with this core wearable expression: trust God fully. Discern everything else.
Trust God fully. Discern everything else. Imagine the mental and emotional freedom of operating with that as your baseline.
It's life-changing. So, for you listening, here is your actionable takeaway for this week. The next time you are asked to give your trust, whether it's signing a contract, committing to a new relationship, or buying into a new philosophy, before you hand your trust over, just pause.
Yeah. Take a breath.
Don't let the pressure dictate your timeline. Run through that checklist. And if you feel that old panic creeping in, our research offers this incredibly simple, powerful prayer to ground yourself. God, anchor my trust in you first. Teach me to see clearly so I don't give my trust where it doesn't belong.
A heart that trusts God deeply will not trust the wrong things easily. And, there is a much broader implication to everything we've discussed today. We spent all this time talking about how to protect your own heart, how to navigate your own broken trust, and how to stop leaning on walls that fall.
Right. It's mostly been about our own survival.
But consider the alternative trajectory here. If anchoring your trust in God makes your own discernment so clear and so grounded, what if your ultimate goal in life isn't just to protect yourself from making bad decisions?
Wait, what do you mean?
I mean, what if by doing the hard work of anchoring yourself, you eventually transform? What if you become that rare, stable, pure, and unshaken presence for someone else?
Oh, wow.
Someone else whose trust is just quietly broken? Someone else who is falling? What if, instead of just trying to find a solid brick wall to lean on, you become the wall that holds?
So what does this all mean? It means the pain of your broken trust doesn't have to end in a fortress. It can end in you becoming a sanctuary. Until next time, stay curious and stay anchored.